And thank you guys for joining. I've got a buddy here that I wanted to do a quick little interview and maybe shed some insight on some recent things. I have a buddy who recently asked me, a married, straight and narrow guy, non prepper, non gunner, what he can do to protect himself and his family. Here, I have a good friend of mine who decided to join and actually answer this question, who I think has a lot of insight into it. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Lugh Longarm. Friends call me Lou. I am my mid to late 30s. I am a GWAT veteran. I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years, infantry, machine gunner, three combat deployments. Afterwards, I worked at a range where I assisted teaching concealed carry permits, and also pistol classes one, two, and three. I got into some other little groups where we did a lot of non-certification training, and then I got into long distance shooting, of which I had won several competitions. One of which was a national competition held in Montana, where I shot out to 1,300 meters. Do the math on the conversion there. I'm not going to, but I've prepped for a long time. I have a family to think about, and I have always kept them first in my mind and safe and prepared for the worst, and also protected.
All right. Yeah. And I definitely that you have the background and the insight into this. And I think that it's a good jumping off point for maybe people that don't have any experience. So, since my buddy who lives I has no experience, he's not a gun dude, he's not a prepper. I think that we can break it down into three different sections. The first section is going to be what skills are good to learn and to start out.
Skills. I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second. Uh, so the first thing, as far as skills, is going to be how to manage your family's resources. And because the most probable thing and the most statistically probable thing that has happened is that you are going to go periods of time without creature comforts and without resources. So knowing how much your family eats, how much they consume, that is what you're going to want to prioritize first. Um, Protection comes after a couple weeks. I know this by, I left this out, but I do a lot of storm response, and I've seen what happens during hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, you name it. And for the most part, people lose their creature comforts, and the people who aren't prepared get the angriest and the most violent the fastest. And it takes about a week before the violence really kicks off. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you know your family's priorities. Um, and so that would be a skill. Another skill would be, if you don't have that, if you're separated from that, how to purify water, how to procure food in a safe and effective manner. Um, Medications, things like that, first aid. These are the first things that are going to possibly happen, even in a disaster scenario. Like I said, tornadoes, hurricanes, uh, Horatios, or whatever they call them, Doratios, nor'easters. Um, you're going to need to know those skills first. Protection is going to come usually after about a week, week and a half.
Yeah, I definitely think that those are all things that you can definitely do, and it is a skill. The funny thing is that those things don't cost any money. When people start thinking about prepping and starting to get into it, the first thing they think about is it's all about money and all that. And the skill portion of it, I don't think really is gonna. I mean, some of it might cost some money, but what I had actually suggested to him initially was getting him and his wife, and then their oldest children basic basic first aid certified, which for us where he's living and everything, I believe it's free. He wouldn't have to pay anything. So that was like the very basic, like very beginning. I had also suggested some very basic walkie-talkies and getting into comms, that those things could come in handy too. But of course, those are things that you have to spend a little bit of money on. And I don't really think that in the skill portion, I don't think that the money portion is all that important. I think that there's a lot of things that you would need to learn beforehand that don't necessarily cost anything. It just takes your time and effort and energy to be able to do it. So I definitely think that where you're going with it is the right mindset. The second question is, what goods or gear are immediately critical? And that kind of gets into the whole thing with the money. Like if you had to invest in gear, which we don't want to divulge too far into that, as we've talked a lot about this before, you don't really need a lot of money to be successful. You need the skills first. So, in the very beginning, what are the goods or gear that are immediately critical?
Yeah, goods and gear. So like you had hit on, as far as training, I'd mentioned, just learning what your family needs and then going off of that. I can, for a brief, before I answer that question as far as gear, I could give an example of what I do with my family, and it's what's called a rotating supply, rotating cabinet, a rotating pantry. The rotating pantry mindset is that all of the things that don't expire within a year, you stock up on. You just buy one or two extra every time you buy it. It's grocery shopping, it's an expense. If you're an adult, you know how to budget. Um, you know, just even like marinara sauce. Well, you can buy them you can buy it in a 5 pack or whatever, and then just circle. Same thing with rice. We buy a bunch of rice, and then we keep it in those buckets. That keeps you going. Okay, goods and gear. I would say that you need to have water storage, food storage, and medical storage, along with medical training. That goes back to the first question. Medical training can be done through the Red Cross at like most community centers. You just watch their Facebook page. They're always doing something for free. Just watch it, do it. It's like 3 hours. It doesn't take any time at all. If you're in a trade that requires it, you're already halfway there. Trauma training comes next. You can learn a lot from YouTube. But as far as gear, past the water, past the food, I know I've hit on that a lot. That is going to be the most critical things you could possibly have. Past that, as far as like gear, I've actually joked about this, that a well-trained, determined individual with just some pockets, and a snub-nosed 38 revolver can take down a SWAT team, with the proper training, physical fitness, and at least one firearm. This is not a Hollywood gesture. This is proven true every time, even with a knife, as long as you are properly trained. So as far as gear, I would say acquiring a firearm, that is going to equal things out quite substantially. Uh, Start with a pistol. Start with what you can afford and what is going to have good reviews across YouTube. You get a Smith and Wesson 38 if that's what you can afford. You can get a Glock 19. That's what I normally recommend, just as a starter, just to start out. Um, that's going to get you ahead big time. It's at least going to protect you against people who want what you have, which goes back to the first point. Have those things and then protect what you have. That is going to be a critical piece of gear, and a pocket knife, a multi-tool, a flashlight, some batteries. Um, the things that are going to be, I'm not really subscribed to the whole nothing ever happens group, but dude, statistically, nothing ever happens in America, uh, other than, a break-in, or, a little riot here and there, or a little hurricane that passes through. And in those situations, hunkering down and just relying on your food supplies, and then maybe having to protect that, or at least show other people that you're willing to protect it, um, comes to play. So gear, you don't need a chest rig, you don't need a plate carrier, you just need some pockets and a pistol. um, you can go further, but that only should go further as far as your training. You can't buy your way out of training. You can't buy your way out of being prepared. You can have all the water in the world, but if it's been sitting in your basement for 5 years and you think you can drink it, you're wrong. That's where, knowing that you're going to have to actually purify that's been sitting for too long. It's stale water. Same thing as food. Same thing as acquiring things. Same thing as even talking to people. You need to learn how to talk to people. But yeah, gear that I'm going to put training and know-how first, but definitely get yourself at least one firearm, a reliable one. I prefer polymer frame striker fired pistols. That's what I prefer. You go that route, you can't go wrong in today's age, unless you're at Jim's Bob pawn shop buying some crap or a high point. Don't get that unless you're just trying to, uh, put the graphic on it with money and make it your problem solver. But a pawn shop, Smith and Wesson snub nose revolver that belonged to your granddad or something, that'll work. But it'll get you on the right path. But you also have to use it. You have to train with it. Training, consistency, determination. That's what matters.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. A lot of the people that I do end up talking to, I usually recommend two things as far as the gear goes. The first thing is having the medical knowledge, which again, it just goes back to the first thing. A lot of people don't know that tactical combat casualty care training is actually free, and you can watch it online. Like you said, it's like a 3 or 4 hour course, and that's definitely a good spot if you're planning on getting into the defensive thing, which, like you said, with having a pistol, I usually will suggest just looking for like police trade-ins because you can get a really boringly reliable Glock for under 400 bucks sometimes. So, and I know that for a lot of people just starting out, they think, oh my gosh, 400 bucks, but it lasts 400 bucks you'll probably have to spend on a pistol if you take care of it and you learn. So, but I definitely agree. I agree with that, and it's hard because right now, the generation that we live in is so influenced by gun influencers and people that are online that are, wearing $30,000 worth in nods, and they've got all the cool toys and gazmos and gadgets and stuff, and that's not really what's going to help you. You got to know how to use it first. So I definitely think that we're on the right track with trying to think in hindsight, what would we do if we had to do it again? And I think that these answers are kind of proving it that our initial thing might have been actually wrong. Like we might have actually started out in the wrong places, trying to be prepared and trying to be the prepared citizen. If I knew what I knew now, I would have done it all differently, which is why it's kind of cool having these conversations now. The last question, the last part is, what should the longer term goals be? So after all this, what should the longer term goals be so that there's something in the near and distant future? What should we be looking to do as far as being prepared?
The long distance goal is to eventually look at yourself in the mirror and know that you're the type of guy that you would want on your team. That is the long distance goal. You need to look like it. You need to feel like it too. So what that translates into is, most people who meet me look at me and they know that like I'm a good guy to get behind, during a conflict or something dangerous. Or I know that whenever I am at someone's house, like, hey man, can you come over here and help me move this couch? Because they just immediately assume that I'm that guy. You need to be that guy, not just for yourself, but for your wife, for your friends, for your mom, for your grandmom. You need to be that guy. That is the type of individual that you need to be. Now, I'm not saying I'm the perfect example. Hell, I'm always trying to improve and I fall short in a lot of ways. However, that's the ultimate goal. Because without that, everything else, it doesn't matter if you put on the most Gucciest of kit in the world and pick up the coolest knight's armament, SR-25 ever, mint with all the stuff. It's not going to give you the edge because ultimately, the first crack that goes past your head, you're going to try and dig a hole with your bare hands and hide in it. And I've witnessed this. Other people have witnessed this. There's books about it. Seen it. I've witnessed people that they might even look the part, but they're tripping out because they all the dollars gentrals are freaking closed and they can't go get any type of basic necessities because they haven't provided for it. So long distance goal is to become that man that's reliable, become that individual that looks like they can carry 15 chairs at the church function. Um, but past that, you know, once you get your basics in order, you can start training, you can start acquiring things, you can start going, well, hell, putting magazines in my pockets is inefficient. Maybe I'll try a chest rig. And chest rigs are like shoes, like I might like this brand of shoes. They might run too narrow for somebody else. Uh, You know, you might like belts, you might like plate carriers, you might think, well, hell, dude, I live in a pretty shitty neighborhood and I know bullets are gonna fly as soon as the lights are off for more than 3 days. Well, get you a plate carrier, you know, do your research. Be that guy. Um, be that individual who's proactive. You know, YouTube's free. Freaking a lot of streaming platforms are free. A lot of this training's for free. The internet is generally free because we have it in our pockets. We have the wealth of all of humankind's knowledge in a small little black square in our pocket. And most people do not use it. They don't use it to better themselves. They don't use it to increase their knowledge. And hopefully this little conversation will be on someone's little black, you know, black rectangle in their pocket. They'll listen to it and go, damn, maybe that's who I want to be. Maybe I want to be the guy who eventually learns that I can not only afford a plate carrier, but I can wear it, don it correctly, and it will be suitable for my needs. Or maybe someone lives in Appalachia and they're like, well, shit, I probably need a piece of load bearing gear because I've been doing my training and now I realize that I would like to patrol around the area. I need a patrolling kit. My family's taken care of. I know they have their food, their water. The end goal is becoming that guy. You want to be that guy. So if you wake up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, don't think about yourself. Think about you just met yourself for the first time and you're looking at that guy in the mirror. Is that somebody you want on your team? If not, the work begins now.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind maybe early on is we're all works in progress. This is not going to happen overnight, and a lot of this pretty much reverts right back to gaining the skills and obtaining the knowledge that we need to be able to thrive and survive, especially for this kind of thing. Like, everything is kind of uncertain and people are really freaked out about what's going on. And here some of us are, we've been doing it for 10 or 20 years or so. And, we're thinking about where we had to start and all that. And that's kind of how this conversation came around. If we had to do it all over again, I'm sure we would have done it differently. And hopefully we'll get this out there and we'll share it and some people will find some kind of benefit with it.
Yeah. If I could say one more thing before we close out, if that's all right with you.
Oh, for sure. Go ahead.
It to close things out, you can't prepare thinking that you're always going to have your things with you, that your pockets are always going to be full, that you're always going to be in the truck that you or the vehicle that you've kitted out perfectly, or that you're always going to be at home or you've got your perfect little work bag. No, that's where mindset, determination, physical fitness, training, you need to be able to get off an airplane, take an Uber, something bad happens, and you're still in your head, you're like, damn, I wish I had my shit, but I can find it. I can figure it out. I'm gonna be all right. You need to be a hard target. Uh, the worst thing is always gonna happen at the worst time. You know, you're not gonna be near your family. You're not gonna be near your friends. You're gonna be on the toilet. You're going to be in the bathroom. You're going to be asleep. Nothing ever happens according to your schedule. That's where, when I say prepping, training, you know, like having the right gear, there is definitely some cool gear out there. And I have my own opinions about it. But that's why I keep harping on being that guy, being that girl or whoever's listening right now, is because the bad thing is going to happen when you don't have the shit that you bought. That's why I harp on it. That, you know, a guy, just a determined, physically fit, trained individual means more than anyone's stockpile, anyone's gear, anyone's guns. You'll acquire your own guns. You'll acquire your own gear. You'll figure out what you like, just like you figured out your own shoes and your own, you know, brand of t-shirt that you like. You'll figure it all out. It's the mindset. It's what drives you. You know, I know that if I took a flight to Sacramento, got off, got onto a Uber, and the Uber driver started driving me somewhere that I didn't like, I knew that'd be reasonably okay. Um, because I have my training in jujitsu. I have my training. I'm a bigger guy. I'm physically fit. I have, you know, the skills, you know, like what's that movie? I have the skills to find you. Not that badass, but I'll be all right. And even if I'm not all right, I still have the mindset that I feel like I'll be all right. And maybe call it overconfidence, but you know, that's the difference. And I think that that's worth at least mentioning.
I definitely think that that mindset is really important. The entire, we're gonna make it. We're all gonna make it kind of thing is important to repeat, and it's important to find people that believe that too. Those are the people that you want around you. You don't want people that aren't going in the same direction. So, and that's kind of hard too, but that might be a whole other conversation. So I definitely think that this is a good start, and this will be a good stopping point too. Lou, thank you so much for being able to sit down and answer these questions, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again soon.
Yep. Thank you, buddy.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.